All right, let's dive in. We are so close to unlocking limitless clean energy with nuclear fusion. But for years, there's been this one really stubborn mystery, a kind of lopsided glitch happening deep inside these incredible reactors that's been holding things up. Well, today, we're going to crack that case wide open.
The promise of fusion is just incredible, but it's also one of the toughest engineering puzzles humanity has ever tried to solve. And right at the heart of it is this weird, persistent glitch that's been causing real damage to the reactors. Figuring this out is absolutely key if we're ever going to build a fusion power plant that can actually last.
So, to really understand this scientific whodunit, we first need to check out the scene of the crime. And that scene is a machine with a seriously cool name, the tokamak.
So what exactly is a tokamak? Well, think of it as a giant magnetic donut. Its whole job is to contain this insanely hot soup of charged particles. We call that plasma. If you can squeeze that plasma hard enough and heat it up to millions of degrees, the atoms literally fuse together, and that releases a tremendous amount of energy.
But here's the thing, even the most powerful magnetic cages aren't absolutely perfect. A little bit of that plasma always leaks out, and where it goes, well, that's where our mystery really begins. So let's zoom in on the evidence.
This leakage is dealt with by a super important component called the diverter. The best way to think of the diverter is as a high-tech tailpipe for the reactor. It's designed to safely vent all those escaping ultra-hot particles and their intense heat away from the machine's core.
Now, in a perfect world, you'd want all that exhaust to be spread out nice and evenly, right? Predictably. But for years, experiments in tokamaks all over the globe have been showing something strange. Something that just isn't symmetrical. And this slide shows you the problem perfectly. The escaping plasma doesn't hit that tailpipe evenly at all. Instead of a nice spread-out exhaust, it just overwhelmingly slams into the inner wall of the diverter, while the outer wall is barely getting touched. This intense, totally lopsided heat, that's the core of our mystery.
So why is this a big deal? I mean, who cares if it's a little uneven? Well, it matters a lot, because that uneven flow basically acts like a blowtorch, concentrating an incredible amount of heat onto one tiny area. This just chews through the reactor materials way too fast, making it impossible to design a power plant that can run for years without needing constant repairs.
For a long time, scientists had a prime suspect they thought was causing all this lopsided chaos. It seemed logical, and honestly, it was the leading theory for years. This first suspect is something called cross-field drifts. Okay, imagine the magnetic fields are like invisible railroad tracks guiding the plasma. The theory was that as these particles are zooming along the tracks, they also have this tendency to kind of drift sideways, which pushes more of them toward that inner wall. It made total sense.
But here's the plot twist. When scientists actually ran computer simulations with only these cross-field drifts, the results didn't match what was happening in the real world. The models just couldn't explain why the inner wall was getting hit so hard. So our main suspect's story wasn't holding up, which meant the theory was incomplete. The mystery just got deeper.
So if the main suspect wasn't telling the whole story, it meant something else had to be going on. There was a missing piece to this puzzle. And recently, a team of researchers found that crucial, overlooked clue.
It turns out researchers had been looking in the wrong place. The clue wasn't just in the exhaust pipe itself, it was back in the engine, in the spinning, super hot core of the tokamak.
And there it is, plasma core rotation. The entire donut of super hot plasma is actually spinning. It's rotating. And this motion creates these powerful flows that travel all the way from the center to the edge, and that fundamentally reshapes where that exhaust ends up.
As the lead author Eric M.D. said, everyone was focused on that sideways cross-field flow. But what his team's work showed was that the flow along the magnetic field lines, driven by this powerful core rotation, was an equally important part of the story. It was the other half of the puzzle.
So now we've got two suspects, the original drifts and this new accomplice, core rotation. To finally crack the case, the researchers had to put them both on trial, so to speak, in a simulation to see if their combined story finally matched the evidence from the real world.
And this right here, this is the aha moment. As you can see, when they simulated with just the drifts, nope, the model didn't match reality. When they simulated with just the core rotation, it also failed. But, and this is the key, when they put both suspects at the scene of the crime, drifts, and rotation working together, they got a perfect match with the real-world data from the D3D tokamak.
And this number you see right here, 88.4 kilometers per second.
This was the key that unlocked the entire mystery. When the researchers plugged in the actual, measured speed of the spinning plasma core, the model suddenly worked. This wasn't some guess. It was the specific piece of evidence that made it all click into place.
This chart is really the final proof. That first bar, that's reality, what the experiments actually measure. The second bar, that's the old model with just drifts. I mean, look how far off it is. But then, look at that third bar. The new model, combining both drifts and rotation, is a near-perfect match. Case closed.
You know, solving a scientific mystery is awesome. But what does this actually mean for the future of fusion energy? It turns out, this discovery completely changes how we're going to design the reactors of tomorrow.
The impact of this is huge. For the first time, we have computer models that can accurately predict where all this intense heat is going to end up. This means engineers can finally design smarter, much stronger diverters that won't wear out so quickly. It's a really critical step toward building a fusion power plant that is truly built to last.
The solution wasn't just one effect, but two different forces working together in concert. And that's a powerful reminder, right? That in the incredibly complex world of fusion, the biggest breakthroughs might be hiding where different forces intersect. It just leaves you wondering, what other hidden connections are just waiting to be discovered?